So welcome to the Bon Jovi Golf Mark 3 AFN daily driver upgrade. As you saw in part 1, the remap took it to 145 and 314 Newton meters. Then we did the downpipe and decat, and that gave us another 11 Newton meters of torque, and in the mid-range between 5 and 6 horsepower. More pickup came on more aggressively and the mid-range was a bit nicer, so we flattened the curve slightly. Continuing on from that vein, we're going to do an injector upgrade and a turbo upgrade. So today we're going to cover this upgrade. This is a turbo from a Passat 130 PD TDI. This is the GT1749 VA. The specs will be here somewhere, with the size of the inducer difference between this and the standard one. The standard one is a VNT15, so it's an older technology variable vane. This is a VNT17, so it's the next generation on. We're not looking to extend the rev range. This one is too small. But what it will do is it will beef up definitely that mid-range and hopefully give us another 15 horsepower at the top end and give us a flatter curve in the mid-range. And then we'll cover these injectors, and I'll go into more detail in the next video when I come to install these, what's been done and how to install those. So today we're just going to cover this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to use are going to be these pliers for these VW clips. It makes life so much easier than actually using a normal set of pliers. It really is nice and simple. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to take off this boost pipe. So you disconnect these two down here. Then we've got the coolant hose going through it, so I'm going to loosen off this Phillips here. So we've released these two here, released the two screws so that we can get the pipe off, and we've released the Jubilee clip that holds this pipe onto the turbo. So that's the top one off. And just release this one, and that's it. And that's the boost pipes off. So there's 3 vacuum pipes. One here that needs to be released, which is the long one. And the second one goes on to the boost pipe. And the third one goes on to vacuum control for the VNT on the turbo itself. So that's the only 3 vacuum pipes you need to take off. We're going to remove the intake. So this is our large intake pipe that we made. So now, as you guys can see, we can start to see the turbo, the outlet, the inlet. The next thing we're going to remove is going to be actually the inlet manifold. So for this part, you need a 6mm Allen key, and you've got 6 bolts that hold this on. And there we go, we've taken off the 6 bolts. We've got a clear view of the turbo and the exhaust manifold and the downpipe. So the next thing I'm going to tackle will be the oil feed pipe. I've made up a little 17mm spanner. I've cut it shorter. I've also cut a little groove in it so it feeds over the oil feed pipe to wedge it in to hold the bottom half of the pipe, so then it stops spinning and it allows me to remove the oil feed pipe. Job done. This is what I made. Nuts. So we've loosened the 3 nuts for the downpipe, give us a bit more space. Now underneath here, there's another 13, which is the bracket that supports the turbo. And then there's 2 10mm for the oil feed. So I think we'll do the oil feed first, and then remove the supporting bracket, and then we'll loosen off the exhaust manifold, and it will all come off. So we've taken off the 2 10mm bolts that hold the oil return down to the block. So there's the 13 that holds the turbo support. It's a good idea to put WD-40 on all these nuts. You know, as soon as you see them, so it can soak in. So by the time you come around to them to loosen them off, it just makes life a lot easier. And do manifolds, inlet or exhaust. So kind of always tighten the middle one, then work your way out. And when you're removing, I work from the outside inwards. So that's it now. The 8 bolts are loose. Just careful not to damage the oil line. Taking off these 3 12mm nuts. Okay, so here we have the 2 turbos side by side. So as you can see, the orientation is slightly off. This is more or less in the same place. The oil feed is slightly off, but there's movement in the oil feed pipe, so that isn't a problem. Now as you can see, the snail is facing the wrong way, so we need to change the orientation. Very straightforward. You've got these 8mm. I think there's 6 of them. So now what we have to do is just loosen them off. You don't remove them, you just loosen them off. So that's it. So we've loosened them off now, and just with, as you see, just easily rotates around. Now we're just gonna mount this into place. There we go. So we got it on. Okay, so that's it, it's on now. So the first thing we'll do is the last thing we've done, which is the oil return. Then just put the bolt through for the bracket, don't tighten it, and then we'll tighten up the 8 manifold bolts again. Okay, so this is as far as we've got for now, then kind of show you the steps. Obviously we used new gaskets, so we've used 4 of those little exhaust manifold gaskets, a new inlet manifold gasket which is there, and a new downpipe gasket. There is no gasket between the turbo and the manifold, so you're just going to make sure you tighten up well. So we started where we ended, removing it, which was we put the 2 10s for the oil return, we put in the 13 bolt for the turbo support, but before you tighten up the turbo support, you start it and then you tighten up then you tighten up the 8 12mm that bolt onto the manifold onto the head. So you know, starting from the middle, working your way out. So top 2, bottom 2, then 1, 1, 1, 1 in that kind of cross section to tighten the manifold back onto the head. And then once that was tightened, then we did the 13, then we did the downpipe, and then we did the oil return. The oil feed, which is really, really easy. We put in the little 10mm clip that was holding the oil pipe there. This one we won't put on until we now put the inlet manifold on. Give the inlet manifold just a very light clean. As you can see, it's got the EGR delete. So now we're just going to bolt this on. Once that is bolted on, then we will press on with the turbo inlet, and then we'll sort out what we've got to do with this boost pipe, the outlet, which will show you what we need to cut on that red pipe. So now, don't forget this goes underneath, this coolant pipe. Goes into the bottom pipe here, goes into there. So that's that side now. Okay, so I've got a Jubilee to replace that clamp. There was like a bit of sweat coming off the pipe, so I'm assuming it wasn't clamping it very well. Now we can start looking at the vacuum pipes again. So we had this pipe here, went on to that one, and then we had one more vacuum pipe that went through, that went on to that there, clamped on this, and then plug in the air temp switch. Job done. It isn't really plug and play. You would have to literally make up a pipe that goes from this red one to the plastic one. So luckily what I've done is I've actually had a pipe, I think it's off a Mark II GTD, the top mounted intercooler ones, laying around, or it's off something, I don't know, actually I haven't checked the part number, and it goes from this pipe to the red one. It just needs to be shortened slightly, so I'm just going to trim it and get it at the right height so it's not kinked here, but luckily it goes on. So I'm quite stoked about that. So yeah, if I just trim a little bit off it, it'll be more natural and it'll just go straight on. Job done. So as you can see, we've done this turbo conversion, gone from a smaller VNT15 to the bigger VNT17 VA off the Passat. It was almost plug and play. You'll see on the forums and stuff, it's plug and play, it's this, it's that. In reality, it is 90% plug and play. The oil feed goes on, it bolts into the manifold perfectly, the inlet goes on perfectly, the oil feed, the oil return, everything goes on as you saw. The only thing that doesn't go on, even though you do have the red pipe, is the outlet. Now, luckily, we had something laying around that we could fix up quickly. Otherwise, you would have to make something up, or you would have to really budget, which we don't do. So, luckily, got it on. It took maybe about an hour and 10 minutes to remove it. We were really, really lucky with no bolt snapping, no stud seizing, no bolt seizing, no nut seizing, nothing breaking. It was all just really really nice and easy. And it took about an hour and 10 minutes. So total took maybe 2.5 hours easy to kind of remove and fit. You'll have a breakdown here of costs, or what this costs, and then on the next video we'll cover the injectors, the fitting of the injectors, what was done to injectors, and then the video after that will be a back to DD Motorsport to get it remapped and see the results, and then you'll have a total breakdown of what it costs for this kind of plug and play limit of the intercooler and clutch setup, and you can see how much the gain was for the cost, which from what I've seen and what I've worked out is getting the most gain with the least cost. So the target for this is 160, anything over 160 is a bonus. So keep posted, support the channel, ding-a-ling-a-ling, click on the bell, and keep watching.
Thank you.